welcome to the Lift Big Eat Big show. Well, I think we're on episode 12 now, talking about how to get big guns, biceps. That's pretty much what everyone goes through. I have to say, it's probably the first exercise you ever did when you walked into the gym was a bicep curl. Maybe not you, Mona, but
No, I was going to
for
say, I think
us,
it's guys, not so
yeah,
much
for
girls.
us, the biceps was the number one thing we did in the gym. But a lot of people get stuck uh, with their biceps growth. So we're going to run through exactly how you can bust through any biceps plateaus, how you can get huge guns. We talked about triceps last week. Now we got biceps this week. Obviously, we have Colm Wolfe, 2 times world's strongest man competitor, and New Zealand's strongest man, masters in sport and exercise science. We have Mona up there, 6 times karate world champion, CrossFit Games athlete, and also Commonwealth medalist, African champion in Olympic weightlifting. So plenty of experience on the show today to talk biceps. Also, remember, in the Lift Big Eat Big Underground, all the programs are in there. You can check that out on liftbigeatbig.com, and you can be part of our private community and everything there. But we're talking biceps, and we have some practical information. We have some research to share, all sorts of stuff there, everything in between. We're not just going to talk research and what happens there. We also have our own experiences from training athletes, clients, and ourselves over decades for growing the biceps. But it's important that we start with a little bit of anatomy when it comes to biceps, so we know exactly how to train them. And when we talk biceps, we'd say bi because of 2, like triceps is 3, biceps is 2, so 2 muscle heads, or 2 main muscle heads, the long and the short head, and they'll be your main bicep muscles up the front, and they're primarily hit using a supinated grip, so a palms up position, like you're doing a dumbbell curl or a barbell curl. That is how you're going to maximally target those biceps muscles. Now, importantly, biceps are also biarticular. So we talked about biarticular muscles as well last week. So essentially a muscle that crosses 2 joints, that has 2 muscle actions. So the biceps cross the elbow to help you with elbow flexion, which is how most of you will be training the biceps, but it also crosses the shoulder and aids a little bit in shoulder flexion. So typically these biarticular muscles are super susceptible to stretch, and they're also, I guess you could say, stimulated very well through extreme stretch and load. So think about the hamstrings, think about the triceps doing your overhead extensions, your rectus femoris quad muscle, like you're doing a reverse Nordic, and then obviously the biceps, being able to extend the shoulder a little to get it behind you, and also extend the elbow is going to put those biceps under stretch. Now, there's also more muscles involved around the upper arm as we move down a little bit into the forearm as well. We have the brachioradialis and the brachialis. So typically we target the brachialis muscle with a neutral grip position. So think of your hammer curls. And that's kind of a deeper muscle under the bicep. It's actually our strongest elbow flexor. So that is why when you do curls and you do hammer curls, you can handle a lot more weight doing a hammer curl variation versus a supinated palms up position. Now, that doesn't mean it only targets the brachialis muscle. You're still getting a lot of biceps, brachii, or short head and long head biceps activation with that. And then finally, you have a reverse grip or an overhand pronated position with your curls. And typically you're targeting the top of the forearm, the brachioradialis muscle. Obviously, you're still getting some biceps activation, but you're using these reverse curl positions to really nail that top of that forearm position. Obviously, when we're doing biceps, we don't want skinny forearms and big upper arms. It doesn't look right. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, before we dive into some of the research surrounding this, I think it'll be good to actually go into some actual experiences and maybe some of our favorite things. So, Colm, do you have, regarding biceps, is there anything that you typically, I guess, lean towards in terms of biceps training to specifically grow the biceps?
Yeah, I think the my first go-to would be making sure the person is doing their compounds. So I find for some reason, well, I guess it makes sense. People tend to like just doing a ton of different curl variations for their biceps. Personally, like I know I've spoken about it before with our us being a fan of compounds, but I am a big fan of the chin up as a nice starter. I feel like so what I mean by that is a supinated grip like this, doing whether you call it a chin up or pull up, you're pulling yourself up. If you can't do that, you can do it on a lat pull down or an assisted machine. But I rarely see guys who are wanting to get bigger biceps just neglect. They don't worry about their rows. They don't do, their pull downs or anything like that. They just do a ton of different curls like preacher curls, regular curls, incline curls, which are all fantastic exercises. But that would be my first step, is make sure you're still doing some kind of compound movement. We've spoken before about the benefits of these big multi-joint compound movements. You can use a large load because of that. Because there's so many muscle groups involved, you can progress it week to week nicely. And so if you make sure you're doing those and then do your curls, you've kind of got all bases covered. Make sure you're doing some kind of curl that involves a stretch. So I'm a big fan of the incline curl. It's probably one of the first exercises I ever did. I think I saw it in a Flex magazine, and I actually hate doing it. For some reason, biceps are one of the muscles I don't like training the most, whereas triceps I love. But yeah, they give me a massive burn, the incline curls. I like using them with clients. I like using them with strongmen as well, because just to go back, an example of compounds, most strongmen tend to have pretty big arms. Like if you look at World's Strongest Man, a lot of them have massive arms. A lot of the stuff we do in strongman involves the bicep, but in a compound movement. So, for example, Atlas stones, pretty much any sandbag carry, like pickup, there's pretty much anything you're picking up. So despite strongmen not doing endless curls all day, they tend to have a large amount of muscle mass because the biceps are used to aid in those moves. But yes, absolutely still do the curls. So incline curls I like for strongman because it puts the bicep under a nice stretch, which you don't necessarily get from strongman movements. And the other thing I was going to mention, just regards to strongman, is I follow the line of thought that you don't necessarily want your biceps to be the overpowering factor. Let's say you're going to lift stones, right? And you've got a ridiculously strong bicep curl. You pride yourself on having a super strong bicep curl because I guess you just like bicep curls. You can curl hundreds of kgs or 100 kgs, let's say, and then you go to do stones. Stones can put your bicep tendon in a compromised position, and if you're used to using primarily your bicep, I follow the line of thought it's more likely that you're going to end up with that tear, opposed to still training your biceps, still strengthening the tendon, but making sure you're lifting primarily with that upper back, using your arms more as hooks. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, same deal. Think of it like if you're doing a barbell row, you don't want your biceps doing all the work. You still want your upper back to be working. You want a bit of movement in those shoulder blades, and the biceps are assisting that movement.
Yeah. And Mona, you don't often see weightlifters or even CrossFitters doing biceps curls unless they're just looking to do something for fun, right? Is there any value for training the biceps within weightlifting and or CrossFit?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, speaking from an Olympic weightlifting point of view, like you mentioned, it's not really something that you will see a lot of weightlifters do. Although nowadays you actually do see a lot more training these kind of movements, and that's more like for joint health. But in weightlifting, even though the biceps isn't the primary muscle that you will train, it's still a really important muscle, because when you do all your pulls, you need to those are the muscles that get activated. And at the end of the day, even though you won't go and do bicep curls or something like that to actually become a better weightlifter, it's just in those actual movements, they will work. So like what Colm was mentioning, like your compound movements. So especially in weightlifting, when you do like your snatch pulls or you do your clean pulls, even when you do your cleans, those are really important movements, because at the end of the day, your bicep will work as well. Although in weightlifting, we don't emphasize you to keep your arms tense at the bottom. You want to keep your arms as relaxed as possible. But when the athlete gets or passes the knee with a barbell and you have to aggressively pull yourself under the bar, that's also more where the bicep will come into play, by pulling yourself under the bar. Now, again, in weightlifting, you don't see a lot of people with big biceps, and that's just the way they train. But then I have seen athletes come to me with bigger biceps that came from sports like bodybuilding, or maybe they come from other sports where they just wanted to train biceps, even just rugby, for example. But the thing is, a lot of these athletes with these bigger biceps end up actually battling a bit more in weightlifting, just because it puts you in a compromised position, especially when it comes to the clean. So if you've got big biceps and you do the clean and you battle with mobility issues, that's one of the things that I tend to see. Then obviously you have to do a lot more work to get the athlete mobile to be in a really strong position. That's why, again, you won't see weightlifters with really big biceps, because it's not going to help their weightlifting at the end of the day, even though it is trained when you do your movements, like your pulls, etc. But then one of the things that Colm actually mentioned that I am also a really big fan of, especially when it comes to CrossFit training. And this is something that I emphasized quite a lot on with my athletes and with myself when I trained, was the chin-ups. And again, that's just a really good exercise to build those biceps, build like just a really strong pull in general. And that, again, it's not just going to help you when you do any bar work like pull-ups, etc. It's going to help you with things like your bar muscle ups and your ring muscle ups. So athletes will, even when it comes to progression of those movements, they'll often do not just chin-ups on a bar, but you'll do ring pull-ups, for example. So that's also another bicep exercise that I enjoy when it comes to doing CrossFit. But I'm now a lot more of a fan of the bicep curls, just because I'm training a bit more physique. And one thing that I've had to learn, because this is not something that you really understand well when you come from weightlifting, and that is, even though your mind muscle connection is really good in weightlifting and you have to be explosive and your timing has to be on point, when it comes to doing slower movements like the bicep curl, I battled in the beginning to get that mind muscle body control, and actually just feeling my biceps work with my bicep curls, because I would just go through the motion or do the movement how I would do it as a weightlifter and being a bit more explosive. But now I actually have to feel the muscle, which took a bit more time, because it is a whole different way of actually doing the movement than before. But I'm personally not a massive fan of training your biceps or even the triceps. I'm more legs and a back kind of girl. But I know to balance the body out, you have to do it.
Yep. And if your goals are physique related, train those damn arms. If we go into some of the biceps research, so it's interesting that there's been some follow-up studies that have been published in 2023 as well, but essentially looking at the preacher curl, and a lot of them use the partial range of motion, so bottom half partials versus top half partials. And what they're finding is the bottom half partials leading to more muscle growth and larger increases in 1RM bicep or preacher curl strength compared to top half partials. So what they're saying is from that, okay, training at long muscle lengths, or long muscle lengths in quotations, even though the bicep isn't fully lengthened, but as lengthened compared to the top half partial, leads to better muscle growth. And we know that longer muscle length training is typically better for muscle growth. Obviously, we talked about last week, you can't just do long muscle length training for every exercise, and that's what you're going to do, and somehow that's superior to other things you're doing. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that in the real world. I think the other thing with these studies is, I'm sure Colm, you've probably done a bunch of preacher curls too, hopefully, and I know Mona's been doing preacher curls recently, but if you're doing the top half of a preacher curl, you have no tension through a lot of that, because once you get to the top, your arm's vertical. Remember, the line of gravity comes straight down, so there's no real moment arm of your forearm to really add tension to the biceps. So you're getting peak tension in the preacher curl when your forearm is parallel with the floor, and you only get that in the bottom half partial, in these studies. So that's just something to, I guess, mull over when you're looking at any of this research as well regarding biceps training. But overall, when we're talking, let's talk exercises. We've mentioned the chin up. Obviously, I think that's one of all of our favorites. I think that's one people neglect when they're thinking biceps, especially weighted chin ups. If you can already pump out, say, 10 reps of chin ups, add plates on there, do sets of 5. I like to do 5 to 6 reps on the weighted chin up if you're looking at building mass. You can also modify the chin up to target the biceps more than the back. So instead of pulling your chest to the bar and pulling your elbows to your ribs, you can like pull yourself around the bar like you're doing a barbell curl, but with your body weight. So that's like some small modifications, but typically you want your hands narrower grip. So it should be like shoulder width or just inside shoulder width when you're targeting biceps with chin ups. But obviously we have the king of all bicep exercise, and that is the barbell curl. And I think people have been poo-pooing curls and stuff because it's not lower muscle length, etc. But man, if you can load the barbell curl and hit reps on that, that will blow your biceps up like nothing. It's just important that when you're training supinated and neutral grip biceps curls, try and have your shoulders positioned back. You want to kind of stay upright with your shoulders back, because then you can at least get a little more stretch on the biceps at the bottom. If you're doing reverse curl stuff, you can be bent over. It's fine because the brachioradialis only spans over the elbow, and that's what you're targeting there. So you don't have to have that same position. But with these barbell curls and things, you want to have the upright position when you're doing it. And you can level up the barbell curl as well, adding fat grips, my favorite, making it like a fat bar. You get the forearm activation and wrist activation with it as well. That's just one of my go-tos. And it's so simple. All you need is a barbell and some plates. You don't need any cable station setups. Even the cable is nice, but you don't need any setups like that. You can do it if you have a home gym as well. I don't know if the barbell curl is something you use, Colm, at all. If you have other curl variations you like to use instead.
Yep, I definitely like the barbell curl. These days, like because I'm training a lot of strongman guys and girls, I tend to just have that dumbbell incline curl in as an assistance move for the sake of the stretch. But yeah, as just a general like tool, I'm the same. I love the barbell curl with the fat grips. I like doing them as well myself. Like as much as I hate training biceps, I actually love fat bar. Like sometimes I'll grab the farmer's handles because they tend to be fat and just use that. Nice, easy setup. Otherwise, one I've been playing around with a little bit, mainly for general population clients in person, is just doing some curls on the TRX. I'm actually quite liking that one, but that's more for kind of a class type situation, so we don't have to worry about changing loads, and it's nice and easy. But you can get a massive pump from that. The other curl, like regular barbell curl that I do implement this one a bit, I suppose, is the classic. It's a little bit bro science-y, but the old pound stone curl. Have you done this?
Right. Which one's that one?
So he calls it the pound stone curl, but it's just basically as many reps as you can with the 45-pound barbell. So let's say you finished your training, you just do as many reps as you can. Let's say you get up to 50. The amount of blood, like the pump that you get on your biceps, is just crazy. And like we were saying last week about it just feeling good for the elbows, same thing. Like you don't need a big weight. Hit some high reps, you'll get a massive pump in the biceps, and the elbows feel pretty good after. That's probably the most common one I use. Clients enjoy it as well because you get to push a little bit and you just get a massive pump.
There's a trend of doing 100 rep curls. Remember, not too long ago, people doing 100 rep curls and raises and stuff, and not putting the barbell down, just trying to get to 100, just for a stupid pump. But there's no way in hell I could do 100 curls with the barbell without putting it down.
I've never got on 100. The most I've got was 50. And I found that hard and that was after multiple weeks of doing it. But like we've said before, don't replace your heavy training with just the empty barbell as many reps as you can. It's a nice little tool in addition to the other stuff, but ultimately it's not the biggest load. So you want to be using those other exercises to progress.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously you mentioned the dumbbell incline curl. I love that at the end of training, just because it puts that under a load of stretch. Like typically, like dumbbell pullover will give you a load of stretch on the lats, and then obviously the overhead tricep extension will stretch triceps, and then the dumbbell incline curl will stretch the biceps. Especially if you've been doing a few biceps exercises or sets before that, and you get that tightness in the bicep, this is something that can help you there. Especially in sports, like you mentioned with strongman, when you have your arms around a stone and being in that shortened bicep position or the tire, and then obviously in martial arts, often you're in that shortened bicep position often, or grappling. It's a good way to lengthen the bicep there. And it ends up being, a way to potentially reduce the risk of injury because you're able to lengthen the bicep through load. So it's one of those ones you can kind of keep in your training, I guess, year round, depending on your sport or whatever your goals are. But one I have been doing semi recently as well is, so the reverse curl is kind of awkward. I think a lot of people avoid the reverse curl, one, because you don't feel such a big pump in the upper arm and the biceps. You feel it more in the forearms, which is kind of where you're targeting. But two, it can be awkward to do. Like with a straight bar, it just kind of doesn't feel right. It's hard to keep your elbows tucked and the wrists feel a little funny. With the easy bar, yes, it's a little better. You can do it with an easy bar, but it still doesn't feel really good. I find it feels best on cables, but what I've done recently is with bands and having the bands basically attached in front. So it'll be like kind of at stomach or chest height, and then having my arms extended fully out in front and curling to my head, reverse curl. And holy shit, that lit my forearms up like crazy, because obviously the tension's greatest when you're at that peak contraction. And it just like, I haven't felt a pump like that on top of my forearms in forever. And so that exercise is something that's potentially worth trying for anyone who's maybe looking to add reverse curls to their training. And I think it's important to at least do them. If you're doing a lot of biceps, it's worth doing reverse curls, once a week or so, because it kind of balances out the forearm. You spend a lot of time gripping and then working, I guess, the elbow or the wrist flexors and things like that, but you don't really get the top of the forearm often, or those wrist extensors. So it just can help balance out and potentially reduce your risk of developing elbow pain as well. Kind of like the finger openings. You can put rubber bands around your fingers and do those. That's another way you can, I guess, develop those wrist and finger extensors to mitigate any elbow wrist pain that could happen from doing maybe a lot of biceps or a lot of grip type work with that. Obviously, we have preacher curls as well. We talked about the preacher curl, bottom half, top half. You kind of need special equipment, or as Mona has been doing recently, one arm on an incline bench for a one arm dumbbell preacher curl. Again, the tension's pretty insane down the bottom. I don't know if you use preacher curls at all, Colm. If that's something that you
not
ever
so
use in
much
training.
with
Yeah.
like I do with general population, because they seem to love it. But not so much with the strongman guys. But for myself, I have also done quite a bit with previous muscle tear in the bicep. So doing that single arm preacher curl on the incline bench allows me to hit each arm individually quite nicely in a controlled manner. But yeah, it's definitely an exercise I would have in my repertoire, but it's not always. I'm always thinking strongman first, so it's not my number one for strongman, but I'd add absolutely general population, and depending on your goal, it's a great exercise.
Yeah, Mona, you got something there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I kind of forgot about this, but do you remember when we trained on not the force plate,
The flywheel?
The flywheel, and I did the bicep curls on the flywheel. That was an insane pump too, and
that's another level.
Yeah, that was another level, and I kind of forgot about it because obviously we haven't had access to a flywheel since New Zealand. So flywheel is listening. They should send us a flywheel again over here in the USA.
We got to do an episode on flywheel training. It's probably novel, or most people probably don't even know what it is, but it's hectic, and it's made its way more to the professional sport population. But
I was going to say it's become quite popular in weightlifting. So I've seen quite a few coaches, high performance coaches here in the US using it with their weightlifting athletes. So that would definitely be an interesting topic to cover, just because you can train everything with
all right, we'll tee that up. But a quick brief synopsis on if you're doing bicep curls on the flywheel. Essentially, the resistance isn't created through load, so you're not adding weight to it. It's a disc that spins, and you're basically going off rotational inertia. So the faster you pull it up, the faster it comes back down. Or I should say, it's equal. So when you're pulling the strap up with a curl, you're getting equal force being produced on the way back down. So you're having to resist that. But there's no dead spots. So if you think of a curl where you curl it up and then obviously down, it gets hard and then it gets easier and easier and easier. or even the other way around, it kind of gets easier at the top. But with the flywheel, you get the constant tension all the way through. So it's hard to all the way down. So it's pretty crazy. And you just get a stupid pump when you're doing it. And then obviously you can do different things to overload the eccentric part of the lift and all sorts of things. So lots of different things, but we can jump into that on another episode as well regarding flywheel. But let's talk sets and reps. Oh, you go.
I just want to mention.
Before getting back to the podcast, I want to let you know that down in the description is a link to the Lift Big, Eat Big Underground. And within that, you get access to all our training programs, online courses, and into our private Discord community, where all three of us are in there to help you with whatever it is with your training. Regarding the programs, we have Mona, who's done all of the weightlifting cycles. We have Colm, who's done the strongman off-season and strongman competition programs. Then we have all the hallmark Lift Big, Eat Big training programs, Pump Dragon, Flanks Method, and many more. And I've also added muscle building specialization programs within that and are continuing to update and add training programs into our app. You also get access to Mona's Weightlifting Mastery online course, and you get to join these calls live in the audience where you can ask members only question and answers at the end of each episode. So if that sounds like you, go down in the description. There's a link there to the Lift Big, Eat Big Underground, and that'll give you access to everything I just mentioned.
Did you guys mention like cable curls or like rope curls?
Briefly, yeah, I know you're a fan of those, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say that, or like easy bar curls. And again, I like those because as a female, like it's not a muscle group that I would always train, but now that I'm doing a bit more physique stuff and focusing on obviously doing the movements properly, it's not about going as heavy as I can, but obviously now just getting that muscle shape. Yeah, I'm a big fan because you can go really light and obviously do a lot more repetition. But then, yeah, I tend to feel that in the biceps also a lot more. And it's just because of my sport that I've done. And again, just coming from a sport where it's so, you're so explosive and you have to be so fast, doing your movements slow and focusing on the concentration of it. That was something that I felt like the rope curls and the easy bar curls was a bit easier for me to start to feel the biceps.
Yeah, one of the things that some people might struggle with straight bars is wrist pain. So if you do have wrist pain when you're doing, say, barbell curls, use easy bars and dumbbells instead. You don't have to do barbell curls. It's just relatively simple piece of equipment to use. But yeah, it can often cause wrist or elbow pain if you have some. So just bear that in mind and use different tools if you're going to do curls with that. But if we start talking sets and reps, there's one thing with biceps, from my experience, I don't know if you guys have felt the same, that I feel doesn't work. And I think, well, I mean, we talked about the ultra high rep stuff, but typically I won't do high reps with biceps. And I don't know what it is. Like with triceps, I'll do like 10 to 20 reps and I'll often go in that 15 to 20 rep range. But with biceps, I will very rarely hit the 15 to 20 rep range. I feel like they do better and grow better in their like 8 to like 12 rep range, something that's a little heavier. So I'll do my barbell curls of like typically of 8 to 10 reps. And then if I'm going to do dumbbell variations, I'll do, 8 to 12-ish or 10 to 12-ish reps. I just don't feel like the high rep stuff does enough. You get a really big pump, but I don't know if you guys or Colm, we've talked about the high rep barbell stuff every now and then, but I don't know if that's something you've felt or come across.
Actually, very similar to what you said. Like if I was to toss out a simple workout, it would be something like chin-ups with the aiming for the 5 to 6 reps, barbell curl 8 to 10, exactly what you said. And then I'd go like incline curl. I would maybe go up to 15 depending on the person, but like 8 to 15 with the goal of being more in that middle range. So like hitting around 10 to 12, something like that. And then those ultra high reps I tend to mainly use for strongmen, just getting some blood into the area. And because you're by that point in the workout, you're so smashed, you don't want to be going for another big heavy weight. So you can just get lots of blood into the area with a nice light weight. But yeah, with like, I find hitting, say, sets of 20 on curls, like myself, I would just never do that because I hate doing it. I'm pretty sure I have given some clients 20 set curls every now and again, but that's more because we couldn't do what we would normally do. Like we're working around. There's some specific reason that we're doing it. for that week. But yeah, in general, I can't explain why it is. Maybe it's just the burn or how it feels.
I think so.
It kind of
Like the same
feels
thing
like
with
you can't keep.
yeah, with supersets, the same thing. Like I'll superset triceps exercises. Like that has been like one of the best things I've done for my triceps. Like for example, supersetting the line tricep extension with extra range of motion, or the PJR pullover with close grip tricep push-ups. That will absolutely smash your triceps. It feels great. But if you superset, say, barbell or curls with incline dumbbell curls, for example, yeah, it's like you
Yeah, I
lose
wouldn't do that.
it's like you lose some of the tension. I don't know what it is. Like same thing if you did hammer curl superset with just normal dumbbell curls. It's like yeah, it's just something that just fatigues so much faster than your tricep stuff. And you guess you can't kind of do a compound movement like a push up like with the triceps, you can with the biceps in those situations. But yeah, it's just not something I found that does well with supersets and higher rep stuff. So bear that in mind, anyone listening, and play around with it. But typically like to use lower reps with the biceps, whereas the triceps can have such a wider rep range.
I also am a big fan of that bicep tricep superset.
Yeah.
You can like easily do it. It doesn't take long. So if you're short on time, you can get so much work done. And the fatigue crossover is not too much. But yeah, bicep into bicep superset, I just wouldn't even bother. You'll just be
too much
screwed.
biceps. So if you're gonna give our listeners a biceps workout, something they can do to smash biceps before they maybe do triceps that day, or maybe they're on a arm specialization, they're looking to just do biceps that one day. What have you got for them, Colin?
So it would be that I would go if you're 2 to 3 sets for each of these. Go 2 if you're more of a beginner, get what you can out of it, and then you can up it to 3 over time. If you've been training for a while, you can start with 3, but I'd go with those chin-ups. 3 sets of 2 to 3 sets of 5 to 6 reps, keeping at least 1 rep in the tank for now. Then I would go with the basic barbell curl. You can do this on an easy bar if your wrists are an issue with the straight bar. 8 to 10 reps, relatively heavy. Just a point on that, when I say heavy, I don't mean, personally, I'm not the biggest fan of cheat curls.
Yeah.
So when I say heavy, I mean still do it strict. I just mean heavy in that the load that you'll use for 8 to 10 is going to be relatively heavy. But yeah, I definitely do not mean use momentum. So no hips, no raising of the shoulder as you're doing it. We want it just on the bicep. And then I like to finish off with the incline dumbbell curls. That would be a nice starter, 8 to 12 reps, or I would even go 8 to 15 on the incline curls if you just quite like higher reps. But in general, on the incline curl, aiming for like 10 to 12 reps. And then if you're just the type of person who likes doing some kind of finisher, I would either go with like a partial range of motion. So I haven't experimented too much with it, mainly in my own training, not so much with clients. But after that study that you were mentioning earlier, like if you've already done your workout and say you finish your set of incline curls, you could just extend the set a little bit by doing some bottom range partials. If you don't want to do that as a finisher, then the high rep barbell curls. But to be honest, if you're just after size, the high rep barbell curl is more a thing for strength athletes who often just have that kind of elbow pain. So that's the main reason I do that, not necessarily for muscle size. But again, I know people just like finishes. They like feeling that burn at the end. It's a nice, safe one to do. It's definitely not going to, you're not risking a big injury if you're doing as many reps as you can at 45 pounds.
Yeah. Actually, it reminded me of an intensity technique that we use, Mona, with, we did it with hammer curls. You can do it with normal curls too, but doing that set of 8 to 10 curls and then finishing, then going straight into 8 to 10 bottom range partials. So if you go heavy enough where maybe you're 1 or 2 left in the tank on the 8 to 10 reps, then you do your 8 to 10 bottom range partials. Man, that is killer. And if you do something like that, you typically only do that on your last set of the exercise. So if you're doing curls, 3 sets, on the last set, you would do that intensity technique. So that's something you can definitely use within your training. Even more brutal if you do it on the dumbbell incline curl because of the stretch. If you like pain, you can do that. But no, I like that. And if you're looking for, I guess maybe a workout that covers the different hand positions, you could do something like weighted chin up. You could do that with your neutral grip, or you could do that with your underhand grip, but typically underhand grip if you're focusing on biceps. Again, 2 to 3 sets, 5 to 6 reps, and you're doing that with weight. Then you can move on, for example, to dumbbell hammer curl. So you have your neutral grip curl, something like 3 to 4 sets of 10. And then if you want, you could do the intensity technique at the end of that if you wanted to. And then you could hit those band reverse curls that I talked about. And these ones you typically do for high reps because it's with a band versus with like a barbell load. So, 2 to 3 sets of 15-ish to get a super stupid top of your forearm pump. And then, again, as we've talked about this whole time, finishing with dumbbell incline curls to get that stretch. And again, you're looking at typically around 2 sets of 12. And you're basically going to do those to failure. Because that you're going to be smoked after that. So yeah, those are just some examples of biceps workouts and some exercises that you can use, and just some general strategy and ideas around how you can, I guess, perform the training appropriately so you can actually grow your biceps. Now, regarding training splits, Colm, are you, I guess, within maybe a powerlifting or strongman program, you're not sitting there hitting muscle groups as your split, you're looking more at movements. But maybe from a bodybuilding physique standpoint, is there a certain split that you would maybe think of or recommend in this situation? I mean, a bro split's not going to do a biceps day. You're probably going to do an arm day if this is something that you wanted to do. But is there something that comes to mind regarding training splits?
Honestly, whatever. I feel like they're all pretty good. It's whatever fits their schedule best and they enjoy the most. So if you like, some people just love the idea of an arms day and will be super consistent with it. If you're like that, then I think doing an arms day and doing like those bicep, tricep supersets is a good option. Otherwise, the classic, I think, like they can honestly all be great. The classics of back and biceps. So you start off with your rows and pull downs, whatnot, and then do your biceps after. Or chest and biceps is another way to do it. So the theory here is that you're not going to be fatigued from doing your chest training, so you can dedicate more energy to your biceps, and then you can do vice versa, back and triceps. Honestly, I think provided there's some element of progressive overload over time, and the exercises are done like correctly, I think all of them are pretty good options, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, if you're training your biceps, typically if you're prioritizing it, training your biceps 2 to 3 times a week is more than enough. You can do arm specializations too. There are some epic arm specialization programs out there where you can basically, it depends how you do it though. Like you can do kind of 3 full body days a week and still specialize in biceps, or you can do more bro split style and hit legs once, and then you're kind of prioritizing the upper body for the other 3 or 4 days. And those are just examples of how you can split it up. But Mona, I think you have some news around Cuba and the weightlifting that's going on there.
Yeah, the Grand Prix just finished now in Cuba, and that was another one of the Olympic qualifiers for the weightlifting, which again was super exciting. I was excited to watch it. It probably wasn't as exciting as the other Olympic qualifiers that I've seen so far. This was also, if there was any athletes who were thinking of trying to go for the Olympics for 2024 and you haven't done any of the Olympic qualifiers, Cuba was the last one to start your Olympic qualification journey with. But what was super interesting for me is, although you didn't see a lot of the big names in Cuba, because a lot of them have already competed at the Continental Championships, the thing is there were some big names there, but all they did was weigh in. So they didn't compete. Now, how it works for qualification for this competition or for the Olympics 2024, you have to do 5 international competitions. I'll just give you a quick breakdown on it. And even if you don't compete in all 5, you have to show up. So you have to show up, you have to weigh in, you have to walk on stage, do the introduction. When they call your name to do your lift, you just won't go, then you withdraw. So that still counts then as you doing the qualification. So you still have to fly to the country. So I saw quite a few big names that went, their names were on the board, and then they ended up just going to the back and doing almost like a warm-up session, and just not going on stage to perform the lifts. So I was wanting to see a bit more from these athletes, seeing where they are currently at. But I also know strategic wise, this is probably the best thing that they can do, because, trying to push yourself to the limit for 5 international competitions in a row in such a short period of time. Obviously, athletes have the previous Olympics, like, didn't even finish that long ago, because obviously it was supposed to be in 2020 and ended up moving to 2021. So athletes haven't really had like a real off season. They've just been continuously training. So being able to do that, because they've already put a big total on the board, and just showing up, doing the weigh-in, I think strategic wise, it's probably the best thing that they can do to just make sure that they don't get injured or reach burnout before the final phase of the Olympic qualifiers.
Are there any surprising athletes that are potentially joining the Olympic run?
Not at the moment. Actually, all the athletes that have been at the top, or whose top 5 are still currently, top 5. There hasn't been any like weird surprises. There was one athlete that I saw, the Inside the Games posted about. They mentioned that Lydia Valentine might be going for the next Olympics. I guess time will tell if she qualifies or not. I know she's coming from quite a few injuries, so I'm not quite sure if she will be on form to be top 5. But I guess we'll see.
Gotcha. And that's pretty much everything that's going on in the weightlifting world right now, isn't there? Is there any more drama going on around? Did anything ever come of that USAW Masters thing?
No, they kind of like, I won't say they squashed it really quickly. It kind of just went to a dead end.
So what's happening? Are there 2 actual federations now?
So by the sound of it, yes. But I think the last thing that came out was USAW is going to go and take legal action against this new federation that they've created, because things were not done ethically, if you can say so. So in the world, when it comes to drama, it's just there's been a lot more athletes that's been tested positive. That's obviously not looking good for weightlifting. I don't know yet. I think they are actually supposed, the IOC is supposed to let us know soon if weightlifting is going to be in the Olympics for 2028. So
they haven't decided.
So they haven't decided yet. So I think it might be June or July, or the end of June or July, that they might actually tell us. But other than that, something that's super exciting is we'll be going to Colorado next week. So it's going to be the USA Weightlifting Nationals. And honestly, it's because coming from a country where weightlifting is not that big, and I know even for James, weightlifting is not that big in New Zealand, and then going to the USA Weightlifting Nationals where it's huge. Like, I mean, it's already starting. I think it's starting on Friday or Saturday of this week. And it's running, I think it might be running for close to 2 weeks. It's full on. There's going to be junior athletes, senior athletes, under 23s, under 25s, the whole different categories. But it's a very big competition. USA takes weightlifting nationals for them. They take it very seriously. And a lot of the athletes who do really well at nationals are also the athletes who do really well at the international competition. So the standards are also really, really high. So it's amazing to see thousands of athletes competing at nationals, having multiple platforms running at the same time. It's just such an amazing atmosphere to see and walk in. And I know I'm always walking in there. It's nostalgic. Like, I almost feel I miss being on the platform. I miss competing internationally when I see that. But being there as a coach, I'm also, really honored, because it's tough to even qualify for USA Weightlifting Nationals. So it's going to be really nice and interesting next week when we go to Colorado.
If there are any podcast listeners or LBEB followers or fans or community members and you see us there, come say hi. We will be there briefly, I think, for one of or a couple of the sessions. So come say hi. But Mona, with the nationals, it's because compared to the American Open's much lower standard, correct?
Yes, so with the American Open, I mean, athletes still have to qualify for it, but weightlifting nationals, they take a lot more seriously. So the athletes that tend to qualify, bless you, little one. The athletes who qualify for like you, for international competitions, USA Nationals is one of the big ones where they will go out to try and qualify to make world teams, and make certain international competitions, where with the American Open, you won't really find that as much. The American Open is more an opportunity for athletes to still have that whole international experience, can I say, just because obviously they'll compete against Canada, just to give a bit of a different atmosphere, and different competitors, but it's not as big and is not as exciting as the weightlifting nationals of USA.
Yeah, of course. And Colin, was there anything happening in the strongman powerlifting? I actually saw on YouTube the Olympic channel was live broadcasting the powerlifting, was it Worlds? One of the big powerlifting competitions, which was interesting because
so the Sheffield.
No, it was one that was just happening recently. I can't remember what the hell it was. But
I must admit, I haven't.
Powerlifting's not in the Olympics, so I don't understand why the Olympics is live streaming it.
Well, they've been working really hard at trying to get, like I think I mentioned before, like how they've got all those rules on the IPF, which are all kind of geared towards hopefully getting them into the Olympics, when I'm not really sure it's going to happen. It almost feels to me like the IOC just strings them along each year, but if they're streaming something, maybe they're getting closer.
It's the World Classic Open. It was.
Oh yeah. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. It'll be cool if it got in the Olympics. But yeah, it's a weird one. Like in terms of as a fan watching, like I think I've mentioned before the rules. You're not allowed to be seen sniffing ammonia. You can't have chalk on your face like Blaine Sumner used to do. You're not meant to do too much yelling or screaming. Like, it just gets a bit much. So I'm not the biggest. I prefer the untested if I'm going to be watching it.
You want to see the freaks. You want to watch the animal cage at whatever expo they used to have that at.
Sort of. I definitely like the top IPF lifters are without a doubt freaks. So I like seeing what they do, but in terms of like I feel like they're just a little bit restricted. And like seeing a guy like Ray Williams, he's such a gigantic dude, or like really thick, and then to force him to use the same bar, the same dimensions rack as everyone else. They're bringing in that bench press rule about elbow depth. It's just a bit, I feel like it's just a bit restrictive to the lifters.
How do you do the elbow depth if you're actually like you hit your chest?
Yeah, I don't know.
How does that work?
I'm not sure. I also heard that they're bringing out a sumo rule soon, or they're having a meeting about sumo to potentially restrict how wide you can stand.
No way.
But yeah, to go back to the bench, like a lady with implants or a super heavyweight male, like I don't know what are you going to make them go super high and like touch towards their neck, or I don't know.
Dude, that is the cheat code. As a chick, just get boob implants, and then you'll be able to bend, shorten your range of motion with everyone else. And then if you're a dude, you just got to get a massive pecs and a massive back, and then you don't have to go as deep.
Easier said than done.
Well, if you listen to some of our upcoming episodes as well on getting a big chest and back, that'll be coming. That'll help you there. But yeah, man, that's interesting. I don't know how they're gonna put together an elbow rule for the bench when there's so many different body shapes and sizes, and then
and same with the sumo rule. Like if you imagine if they come up with a rule, say I've heard the justification for it is to protect lifters' toes. So you know how some people stand all the way out. When they lower the bar, there's potential to catch your toes. So they're like speculation. It might become you have to have your shins or maybe your feet just around where the rings are.
Have you seen anyone ever drop it on their toes in sumo? I don't think I've ever seen someone drop it on their toes.
I've heard of it happening. Like I've spoken to people who have had it happen, but they always blame themselves. It's not like like oh, I just wasn't. It's just like any mistake. I wasn't concentrating and I just messed up.
Yeah.
It's not like yeah, the bar's not like the rules are causing me to hurt myself every time sort of thing. So I don't
So
know.
they're just trying to, but isn't that that's what happens when sports go to the Olympics, right? Sports get watered down, and they watered them down. I don't know why. I don't know why they do it. Like, for example, karate became, well, not karate at the Olympics, as Mona will know, but they watered down sports to the point where, okay, you can't even touch an opponent's head, nothing. And in karate there, they're doing the same with powerlifting. They're watering that down. You can't do this, you can't do that. It's an interesting thing they do.
I think it has to do, like, what I've heard, like in the IOC meetings and stuff like that, they do a lot of it in to almost like just bring people together in the Olympic spirit, and it's about having everyone compete together instead of having everyone like trying to kill each other. So I think if they have to attack each other into like oblivion, that's not for the. It's not going to be good for the Olympic spirit, and it's not going to.
Olympic spirit, aka just lining the pockets. Allegedly.
But we're going to see boxing. They're going to ban headshots in boxing next.
Yeah, well,
they might even be in the Olympics.
Yeah, they might not be in the Olympic weightlifting, and it's weightlifting and boxing that are the two threatened sports at the moment that will most probably be out. Hopefully not. But I mean, even with boxing and Olympics, I mean, you are required to wear headgear, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Where like in professional boxing, it's
not that headgear actually does anything for reducing the risk of concussion.
Yeah, well,
might even heighten your risk of concussion.
Yeah,
it just stops cuts.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just there.
There's a podcast people can check out to hear about that, isn't there?
If you search Gary Turner on YouTube, you'll probably find it. It's relatively
a good one.
Yeah, I should talk to him again, get some more infos on that. But yeah, I mean, boxing. Yeah, I mean that two of the original. Boxing was one of the original Olympic sports as well, right? Boxing and Olympic weightlifting.
They're
just like kind
of
slowly just phasing them out, bringing in surfing, golf.
Wrestling's still in there, right?
Yeah. But they were threatening wrestling too, right? Or was out for a year.
Yeah. Did you say they're bringing in esports to it?
No.
There's been talks. There's been talks. They haven't obviously, and the easiest way to see, or the best way to see if it's becoming more reality, is looking at what they put in for the Youth Olympics. And I think the Youth Olympics is often the year before the normal Senior Olympics. And that's where we saw things like your rock climbing and your break dancing.
Rock climbing is pretty sweet though.
Yeah, that was really nice to see. That was something totally different. But yeah, probably next they're going to bring in like skipping with the skipping rope, or yeah.
Well, they got breakdancing and all sorts, but I mean, I for sure, I'm betting 99% esports will be in the Olympics at some point in the near future. Like the money there, they will not turn down that money.
It's the saddest thing ever.
Have you seen the attendance and how many people watch some of those esports finals? They fill sports stadiums. They have more people watching than I think it was at the Super Bowl at one point for some of them. Like crazy numbers, and the amount of money they must pull in is just.
I know, like this year, there's a new version of Street Fighter, and so this is not in the Olympics, but they're doing a world champs for it. First place gets $1 million, and like there's someone involved in strongman. I'm like, what is going on? Like,
wow.
First place to be the world's strongest man, you get $70,000 US. First place in like the Street Fighter tournament, you get $1 million US. And like, imagine, if you compare like the stress that your body goes through between the two, that's pretty funny. But yeah, they draw in like a massive audience for it. So I guess that's how they make money off of it.
So have you started training for it?
I have Street Fighter 6 and I have lost many games. I do not think I'll be getting anywhere near it.
Maybe we should start.
Maybe we should start Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Basically, I think to have a chance at winning that, because it's so, like, physically easy. You're up against people who just play it almost like 24/7.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like, because
100%.
you don't have to, like, if you're lifting weights or weightlifting or whatever, you need to sleep right, eat right, and I'm sure they do that for the game as well. But I feel like it wouldn't, like, if you could play an extra 8 hours over someone else, I'm sure that's going to be more of an advantage to, like,
Oh yeah,
over getting your protein in on time or something.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. All
But
the
don't
fucking
they?
nerds will be smashing it.
But don't they have also? Because I know doping's also a thing in
Yep.
esports. Like, isn't
Yeah, there's been people
they've
that have
got?
been caught for doping. Also,
Yeah. I was gonna say
also
there's doping
gambling.
testing. Yeah.
Also, match fixing.
Really? So it's
Yeah,
that's so funny. What drugs are they taking in esports?
Like concentration.
nootropics.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Man,
All
that's
brain
so
supplements. Yeah, man, that's pretty. Well, I mean, think of the money on the line. I mean,
Yeah,
they're playing for
man,
millions,
yeah.
in those
So
tournaments.
do they get tested?
They must do. Well, they must do
Yeah.
Yeah.
now.
Well,
At least.
if they get tested positive, then I'm sure they must, and it's probably at some of like the World Esport Games or something that you'll
Well,
get
it just
tested.
depends on each game has its own like league as this, and then they all stay in the same house for like training camps and stuff, and they have like coach. I'm pretty sure a lot of them have like nutritionists now. Strength conditioning coaching has somewhat broken into the space, so there's like esports strength conditioning coaches now, so they can do their physical training, like as part of their day schedule, and then they go play their whatever it is, their tactics shit on their while they're training, and then into those big events. But yeah, there's been guys that have been popped for match fixing because sports betting on esports is pretty big too. It's a relatively big thing. So if you're playing it, I guess you could literally just fix matches and make some extra
Yeah, they're
cash.
pretty easy to make it look real as well.
Yeah, exactly, because it's just literally playing a game. But why can't we bet on strongman?
I'm not sure. There's a lot of things with strongman that need to come up.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to go back a little bit to the biceps, there was a question I wanted to ask you guys.
Yep.
Because the most popular, like, whenever I talk to people, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's chest and biceps they're after.
Yeah.
Arnold was a big fan of cheat curls and concentration curls. They're two exercises that I personally don't really have anything against concentration curl. Cheat curl,
I don't do either.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you guys use either of those? Because they seem quite popular still.
No, I don't do either. I can't. The thing is, most of the time, I don't want to train one biceps at a time.
It takes a while.
I don't want to do one arm at a time. Like, if I'm going to do biceps, I'll do both, because I don't want to sit there having to do 10 on one arm and then 10 on the other arm. That's such a pain in the ass. So, one, I won't do that. Two, I don't feel like the concentration curl gives me anything extra over something like a preacher curl or whatever else. So, I don't bother with that. And then the cheat curl is like, I just don't do the cheat curl. I just keep it strict, and maybe you have a little bit of body English on your last couple of reps, maybe. But to go out and deliberately try and load, I mean, yeah, the risk of bicep tear as well is pretty high.
Have you seen those influencers who did the tandem bicep curl?
Yeah, talking about Callum Von Moger.
And what did he tear, both biceps?
One
of them.
Him and Chris Bumstead. They tried to cheat curl 180 kilos, and then he tore. But that ended his career.
Yeah.
Callum. I mean, he was the next Arnold, right? Because he kind of looked like Arnold and had a similar physique. And then he did that 5 years ago or something. And
not worth it, guys. Don't do cheat curls, even though that's an extreme.
Didn't we watch it? It was on a documentary too, right?
There's a documentary on Netflix. Oh no, it's on Amazon, I think. With him and kind of what he went through afterwards and stuff. But I see now he's just made a comeback to YouTube, I think last week.
Okay.
Detailing whatever he's doing. But yeah, man, like tore his bicep, and that was that, which is pretty nuts to think. Like, when you have such a good road ahead of you, you just do something like that and it's gone. But yeah, that's pretty nuts. But I think we'll wrap that one up there. Remember, down in the description, there'll be a link to the Lift Big, Eat Big underground private community, all the training programs, all column strongman programs, all Mona's weightlifting programs, plus all the Lift Big, Eat Big strength and size programs, pump, drag, and flanks method, the mule. We have leg specializations. We're adding more and more programs every single month.
Specialization.
Oh yeah, the glute specialization that Mona's currently doing, that is going to be in there very soon too. So make sure you check all those out. But please like, subscribe, share, everything like that, and we will see you next week.